Look at this. This has taken forever. That's a lot of work. Hats off to them. I don't envy them, but boy, that's a lot of work. It took a long time, about 2 weeks, easily. Hello, everyone. I wanted to jump on here real quick. I'm sitting here at my daughter's school. Things are a little different here in the Philippines. You can't just drop them off at school. I wish you could. I wish it was like America. Just drop them off, but you have to sit with them. She's in kindergarten, so I have to sit with her for 3 hours. My wife can't make it. She's pregnant. So we will have some videos coming soon about discussing the costs that we had to pay to the hospital for the pregnancy. And showing some things that we've bought, we've ordered, waiting on a few baby items to come. The baby isn't due until late January, early February, but we're ordering everything now. One thing I've noticed since I've started doing these videos is that I made a video about my experience in the Philippines as far as have I experienced racism, and explaining that yes, I have experienced it, but not from Filipinos. And so I had some Filipinos jump down my throat in the comments. Don't bring that to our country, using the N-word repeatedly. I don't know where that came from. And I didn't mention any racial slurs or anything like that. I just really expressed how I noticed that a lot of racists seem to be here, and that, basically they'll ignore you. That's just how it is. And then I just feel bad for the Filipinos because, it's just I find it troubling that they have to marry these type of men, and and then you have to be aware of what they're being taught or what's being said. But yeah, so it just really surprised me that people reacted like that. But then I had some, Europeans try to jump in the comments, speaking, trying to tell you history and different things like that. And one thing I wanted to say is that, I'm in the Philippines. I've learned a little bit about the history. I've learned a little bit about how things were before the Spanish came. But I would never try to tell a Filipino person their history. I would never argue with them about history or anything like that. I mean, I don't think that's my place. But it's some people who just feel the need to do that. And as a black person, as a foundational black American, people constantly want to tell us our history or try to, and the thing is that most people, like 90 to 95% of the people, are not going to learn our history. Our people don't even know our history. And it's not in it for white people to learn it because they benefit from it, because there's so many lies. Once things are told so much and they're just repeated, most people don't want to challenge them or even, accept that they may not be true. And in America is just so full of lies. I mean, just like the perfect example is like Paul Revere. Everyone, if you're from America, you've heard Paul Revere, the British are coming, the British are coming. He the one that warned people that they were there. And that's a lie. That he wasn't even the person. He got labeled and classified as the person because someone made a song and they, put his name in a song, and then people took it as history, and it's taught in our history books. So that's the perfect example. But yeah, never let anyone tell you your history. Just period and point blank. Never let anyone tell you your history. And so, I usually take the time, even though I don't want my channel to be about that. I want to speak about things in the Philippines. I want to speak about how people can make money. I do have an update coming about my real estate, my wholesale journey from the Philippines pretty soon. But yeah, I take the time to explain it because people don't understand it. There's countless videos online of saying we don't have culture, we don't know where we come from. And the thing is that we've been in America since the 1600s. We've been in America before there was an America, before the country was even there. We've been there the whole step of the way. And then everything that's good from that society that people like about it is things that our people fought and won. The things people don't like about it actually came from racism and oppression, like the pay system for colleges. That came about because they thought if they charged us to go to school, then people wouldn't be able to afford to go to school. And it just translated to everyone. Same thing with hospitals. They thought if they didn't treat us, that we would have bad health conditions and die off. These are all things you can look up. It's not just some black man rambling online. These are facts. So, but if you speak about these things, the way the society is nowadays, as far as cancel culture, it goes both ways. People don't want to hear that. What I mean? They don't want to place the blame if the blame is to go anywhere. And people want to take credit for things. So But hey, enjoy yourself. Educate yourself. Knowledge is power in the sense that no one can tell you anything, right? So just work on it. Yeah, so I encourage everyone to learn, at least know where you come from and know your own history. Be able to answer those questions, the tough questions. Some people can't answer those questions. I was just speaking to a brother the other day. We were at the hospital. My wife was doing some checks, some checkups or whatever. And this, I was speaking to this Filipino guy. He's a VA, and he was speaking about things. And so he asked me, he said he knows a little bit about our history. He learned, a little bit about what we went through in America. And so he asked me, he's like, so do you speak another language? Like, do you speak, your language? I'm like, and I explained to him, I said, I thought you knew our history. I thought you said you learned some. So I kind of explained to him about how, like, when we were brought to America, how we were, like, mixed up and split up. And, they didn't want us to be able to speak the same language and different things like that. And so, and basically how our culture, everything was stripped from us, right? And so, but he was surprised. He didn't even realize where our last names come from. He didn't realize that, my last name, that it's from whoever owned my family a long time ago. That's the owner of the people who claimed to own another human being. They gave us their last name. So he didn't know this. And then, I had another thing in the same hospital a few months ago where I see black people I speak to. I'm like, how you doing, man? You know what I mean? And brothers mostly speak. Sometimes the Africans may just nod. They don't really speak. Some of them. But yeah, this particular brother spoke to me. And I was like, where you from, man? He's like, I'm from Ghana. Oh, okay, Ghana. Okay, that's cool. That's awesome. He's like, where you from? I said, I'm from California. I'm from Los Angeles, from America. And then he hit, Then he hit me with the, where you from? What? Where I'm from? I thought you said, our history, right? And he's like, yeah. And then, before I could really speak on it, I had to go. I think my wife came and we had to leave. But yeah, some people can't really have those conversations, but don't take the time. It's better to, I've heard some creators, it's not my job to teach you, but I think it kind of is, because the people who've been controlling the narrative and who control Hollywood and the media, they haven't been telling the story. You know what I mean? They're not going to tell the story, so it is on us to tell it. You know what I mean? So just learn and be able to tell, because, I may make a video about, like, the whole Sub-Saharan thing, because there's a big thing where in certain posts, certain groups, certain conversations, white people love to pull out that Sub-Saharan. You're a Sub-Saharan. They try to tell you where you come from. Like, these people, you only come from this region right here, and that's not true. You know what I mean? That's not true. And the reason I say that is because my maternal grandfather traced our family back to Ethiopia years ago, and one of my aunts even went over there. She went in the 1980s, matter of fact. And why I specifically remember it, because Karate Kid was big at that time, and I remember she brought back a drum. They had this rubber between your hands, like like you're doing the hand clasp sign, hands clasped together and kind of rub them, and the drum would like beat itself. I remember she brought back a drum, and I was like, wow. In the movie, it was like, this is a Japanese drum or whatever, I think, or you know what I mean. So yeah, it's she brought back some other artifacts and stuff from Ethiopia, but she went and met with our family. She went back in the 1980s. So if you look at the controlling narrative, it's like, hey, you guys are Sub-Saharan. You don't have anything to do with the history of the region around, in that part of Africa, like Egypt or Ethiopia. You know what I mean? Like different, sectors of history they consider great. You know what I mean? They make sure to try to take us away from that history, like to separate us from that history. So it's good to know, because the controlling narrative is like, hey, you all come from here. When in actuality, when you look at, the Ivory Coast and these ports that we left from, these are basically airports. So basically to say that everyone comes from this region right here, because that's just where they put us on the ships to send us to America, to the Americas, I should say. It's kind of like saying, you all come from around the Atlanta airport. You all come from around LAX. You know what I mean? So, you could leave LAX to come to the Asia, but hey, you could flew out of New York. You could originate from New York or Maine or whatever. So it's just, hey, educate yourselves, brothers. You know what I'm saying? Don't listen to the narrative. You just saw that. I don't know if people saw a few months ago, there was a guy from Egypt. No, I'm sorry, not a guy from Egypt. There was a few months ago, there was a guy who did a DNA test, and he came up as a descendant of a pharaoh, an Egyptian pharaoh. It's a black guy from America. So, but yeah, have some stuff coming soon. Speak about some of the, the maternity package, that I had to pay for, for our delivery for our baby to come, and some reveals, shoppy items. So hey, enjoy yourself, man. Y'all stay awesome.